one now shows the only thing chema ejago na me de edo artists na ekoso e o man kana mo nyina no na me de ba bed na me de ba sum wo e ma o refi so be hit notification bell no subscribe to the channel say be me de nsem ntuma na wo se unsa ekebi nyama ekoso e o man kana e bra men se bre no meja wo na wakọ na wo akọhwe nya ekoso e o man kana mo na wo so aje ba dinche e de ma me e o notification bell na meje bre na ma kenken ni nara e de mo afuma yenko na yenko hwe nsem no ene nyama ekoso e o man kana.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by my honorable friend on the other side. Kwame Akroma, we all know, played an important role in the independence of this country. And so any day that we ought to celebrate the legacy of Dr. Kwame Akroma, ordinarily, it is very fine and we all support. But on this day, the statement read is in relation to the overthrow of Osajefo Dr. Kwame Akroma. And we all understand from history, right from 1947, when Dr. Akroma came to Ghana, or then Gold Coast, to support the independence struggle, his contribution to the independence struggle, which later culminated into his ascension as the president of Ghana. So, from the time that Dr. Akroma became president, ordinarily the constitution, the 1960 constitution of Ghana, gave His Excellency Dr. Kwame Akroma a mandate to rule for a 4-year term. However, certain actions of the government at the time, including trying to pass or make Ghana a one-party state, were some of the concerns that led people in that time to object and fight against those decisions of His Excellency Dr. Kwame Akroma. For me, it's important that we learn lessons from history. When we move forward or we fast forward to our current 1992 Constitution and its dispensation, we can clearly say that the lessons of Osajefo Dr. Kwame Akroma, we as the political class or elite in this country ought to be careful, because our actions and inactions have the tendency to call on others who have problems with the politics that we do to also take certain actions that can affect the democracy that we all look forward to. So, in as much as it is very sad to see an overthrow of a constitutionally elected government, it is very important that in our dispensation, we protect the democracy with the actions that we take as a government. Some of these actions include protecting the fundamental human rights of our citizenry. And when we raise issues which we just discussed about press freedom and broadcasting freedom, these are all avenues that allows the Ghanaian populace to be able to vent or air their views in this country. And so any attempt to curtail some of these things have the tendency of obstructing or bringing people who have hot heads to take certain decisions against our democracy. So on this day, I want to join hands with my colleague, commending him for reminding this chamber of the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Akroma. But I believe that we all in this parliament have to protect the democracy that we have established under the 4th Constitutional Republic of this country. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this statement ably made by our colleague. The statement is a reminder of criminality in our body politics. It's a reminder of a criminal and justifiable overthrow of a democratically elected President of the Republic of Ghana. People can never be absolutely satisfied by any leader. The immediate past government, people were not satisfied by certain decisions. And of course, even this government, people may not be satisfied with certain decisions taken. But that is not a license to torpedo, truncate the democratic processes. What is grievous about the criminal overthrow of Nkrumah is the fact that people allowed people outside this country to influence that. And there are ample evidences, conclusively, stating without any doubt that the overthrow of Nkrumah was not planned in Ghana. It was planned by the people who felt we needed to still come into them, bowl in hand, so that they can dictate to us how this country is governed. Nkrumah said he won't do that. It is shocking that there have been subtle attempts to justify the criminal act perpetrated by certain people in this country by using certain policy interventions of Nkrumah. Show me one single thing Nkrumah did without passing through the due process of law. Even the PDA, which indeed has been repudiated and condemned by many of our friends, cannot question the legality of that action. It was an action that was taken by the Parliament of Ghana. And it is amazing that this attempt to find justification to an illegality for me is laughable, to say the least. Don't judge me by my height. Judge me by the depth from which I began, and you would understand the justification in taking certain actions Nkrumah took. There were certain cities in this country Nkrumah, as the sitting president, could not travel to. Certain cities in this country. You had a woman in Kumasi who they used pestle to pound at the private part of that woman. And you know the woman's crime? She was only a member of CPP. So at that time, and interestingly, people who are now condemning one-party state, they were hailing another leader who had passed one-party state. Ifobwanyi was their hero, yet they are condemning one-party state. I think that the hypocrisy in our body politics ought to be avoided. Nkrumah is the founder, the only founder of the state Ghana. I have heard, Mr. Speaker, I have heard people who have even argued that the big six, there are big six. Maybe perhaps they do not appreciate the day that so-called big six came to being. It was after the 1948 riot, when Ghanaians, ex-servicemen, who fought a war that had nothing to do with them, and promises were made to these Ghanaians by the so-called colonial masters. When they were making demand, there was a military leader of the British called Major Imrie, who instructed those ex-servicemen to be gunned down. That occasioned a riot. At that time, Nkrumah was at Salt Pond. When people were round up, all the so-called fights which added to Nkrumah, when they interrogated, they said they didn't organize it. It was Nkrumah who organized it. At the time when the 1948 riot happened, Nkrumah was not even in Accra. They said they never participated in the 1948 riot. Yet they want us to call them Big Six. So, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing like Big Six. There was only one, and that one is the Sergeant for Dr. Nkrumah. Right, Honorable Speaker, it is important.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. 5 minutes.
Let me conclude.
Conclude.
Mr. Speaker, what is hurtful? Mr. Speaker, what is hurtful for some of us who are in academia, and I speak as a political scientist. Mr. Speaker, Nkrumah has gotten people to write an African encyclopedia. On the campus of a university, I have acquired 3 degrees. I shamefully want to state that university brought all the writings of Nkrumah, including the African encyclopedia, which was virtually completed, to be burnt at the supervision of lecturers of that university. I feel ashamed that I had 3 degrees from that university.
Thank you.
The history of this country can never be rewritten. Nkrumah is the founder. He will remain the founder.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, we have named state edifices after criminals who indeed participated in the overthrow of the first democratically elected government in this country. Nkrumah has no equal. He will remain the founder. He will remain the hero, no matter the death. And it is, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, it is not for nothing.
Thank you.
To conclude, Mr. Speaker, to conclude, just I beg you. It is not for nothing. Nkrumah was voted African of the millennium.
Thank you.
African of the millennium.
Thank you.
Among all the heroes in Africa. Respect the name of Nkrumah.
Honorable Tampuli. It appears when we mention Kwame Nkrumah, it's like, yes, Honorable Tampuli.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to contribute to the statement that was made to commemorate the anniversary of the overthrow of the first Prime Minister, first President of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, that overthrow, as well as subsequent overthrows, have been blots on our nation, Ghana. Mr. Speaker, it's been said, and it's bear repeating, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Things that happened after the overthrow of Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that we condemn. Same things happened after the overthrow of Professor K. Buzia, and more recently, the overthrow of the Hila Liman administration. Mr. Speaker, the flogging of women and putting things, excuse me to say, in their private parts continued after the 1981 overthrow of the Hila Liman administration. Mr. Speaker, very close by here, Makola women were stripped naked. Justice Park in Koforidua. Mr. Speaker, there are a litany of such examples across the country. Mr. Speaker, the immediate speaker who made the commentary made reference to the fact that all the things that happened during the Kwame Nkrumah administration were made pursuant to laws that were passed. Mr. Speaker, be that as it is also true that the Nazi Adolf Hitler, every action that Adolf Hitler took were made pursuant to law. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not about whether it is pursuant to law or absence of law. It is about the morality of the law. Mr. Speaker, it's about the morality of the law. So, Mr. Speaker, when you make reference to law, everything that we spoke about this morning is made pursuant to a certain law. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, indeed, we are not happy about military overthrow. There are excesses even in our democratic experiments. There are excesses. It does not call for military interventions. Mr. Speaker, we have had, military interventions across the West Africa sub-region. And one would have thought that in this day and age, military interventions will be things of the past. But, Mr. Speaker, we still have, coupists, taking the reins of power in Niger. We have in Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Gabon, and so on and so forth. So, Mr. Speaker, when we celebrate and commemorate days like this, it also reminds us that we must all roundly condemn coupists who are still in our midst, even up to today, and not give them room to operate. We don't have to give them the kind of recognition that we are giving them now, unless, of course, we are saying that what happened in 1966 is something that we are going to be very proud and happy about. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to make
you very much.
Some short statement, comments to the statement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the first time is, let me remind you, tomorrow is the backbenchers day. So rest for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll give you enough time to do whatever you want to do. So let me invite the Minister for Foreign Affairs to comment on.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this solemn statement. The 24th of February 1966 coup, the first coup recorded in Ghana, And indeed, that is the coup that triggered a chain reaction of coups on the African continent. Mr. Speaker, after the 24th of February 1966 coup, the jury has returned that the Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is the best leader that this continent has ever seen, and indeed ranks very highly as one of the best leaders the whole world has ever known. Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement, my good friend, the Honorable MP for Ho, the Honorable Edem Kotosu, has to be commended as a first-time member of Parliament for commemorating this day. And indeed, I would like to encourage him to institutionalize this commemoration so that every year we shall be remembered. All of us ought to remember that 24 February 1966 is Ghana's day of shame. It marks the darkest hour in the history of our country. By 24 February 1966, what Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had achieved in education, in energy, in infrastructure, indeed, the analysis has been done that a lot of the first world countries today, they were nowhere near Ghana in 1966. By the time Kwame Nkrumah commissioned our harbors, many European countries did not have the kind of harbor we had. By the time he commissioned the Tema motorway, many in cosmopolitan Europe were waiting to have a motorway of that nature. By the time the Akosombo Dam was commissioned, there were many, many countries in Europe, in the Americas, and in Africa who had absolutely no idea. They could not even conceptualize the vision, the technology that went into creating the world's biggest man-made lake at the time. The Akosombo Dam was not created by Nkrumah to power just Ghana, but it was to create electricity for the sub-region, and indeed to industrialize and create jobs for our people. So this is a man...
Minister, conclude for us.
This is a man who was ahead of his peers, and he has been vindicated. When the international community was asked by the BBC at the beginning of the new millennium to vote for the man of the millennium, he competed with the likes of Nelson Mandela, with the likes of Julius Nyerere, with the likes of Sam Nujoma, with the likes of Fidel Castro, and yet the Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah emerged as the African of the millennium. And Mr. Speaker, on this day, we should be reminded that those who staged that coup with their Western collaborators, the CIA declassified files, has settled this matter beyond doubt. That was not only a local orchestration, they had international support from those who thought that if they allowed Kwame Nkrumah to continue the way he was going. Indeed, when you read the ambassador at the time, Mahoney, as I conclude, in Mahoney's own words, he said that the kind of enlightenment that Kwame Nkrumah was bringing to the continent and liberating the minds of the African people, it will serve as a threat to the progress of their continent. And that is why they collaborated with feed columnists to mastermind that coup d'etat. But history has taught us that you can overthrow a government, you can kill a man, but you cannot kill his vision, you cannot kill his ideals.
Thank you.
You cannot kill his
Minister.
legacy. And that is why even after his overthrow, he's the only man in global history who was asked to come and be president in another country. Can you imagine
Thank
that?
Thank you, Minister.
Overthrown in Ghana, but he became the co-president in Guinea and was given a state funeral.
Thank you.
Nkrumah never dies. The legacy of Kwame Nkrumah will live on forever and ever and ever. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Now, leadership. I said 2-2, and we've done 2-2. So